Hello and welcome to Grody and Unprofessional. My name is Justin McMenamy, and my mission is to share both profitable and painful leadership lessons I have acquired over a 20-year career as a misfit in corporate America. In this episode, we discuss proper recipe revitalization techniques when discovering a squirrely potato in the cultural stew. Caleb Schleder, welcome back to Grody and Unprofessional. It's been a while since you've been in the studio here. We've made a few upgrades. We got an official table, not just a piece of plywood and some sawhorses anymore. I think we've got you. That might be the same chair you sat in before.
Might be the same chair.
We haven't upgraded the chair yet.
But we got coasters.
We got coasters.
This feels starting to feel legit. It's getting there.
Does that mean I have to change the name of the podcast, or can I keep the name?
I think Grody and Unprofessional, legit is complete. You can be legit and Grody and Unprofessional.
Okay. Good. Hey, you're the expert in the room, so I'll take your voice on this. So today what I want to talk about with you is a topic that I know you're very passionate about. It's a topic that I've seen you study, I've seen you deploy, I've seen you work on over the 5 years that we have known one another, and that is team building.
Yeah.
You and I worked at Precision Planting. Over that period, the organization grew both in revenue, but also grew in the number of people that it employed. It also grew in the number of countries that it worked in. It grew in the number of product domains that it was in. We added sprayers, we added seeders. There was a lot of, you can call it growth, but it's also expansion.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we had to be very intentional about, and I saw a lot of intentionality for you and your team, is building the team.
Yeah.
Building the team, not just to be better at what we do today, but preparing the team for what we're going to be doing tomorrow. Share with me a little bit about your passion and your focus into team building. What drove and started that passion for you?
When I look at it, I really believe you only get so many special teams in your life. When you're in a business environment, I look back at the teams I've been a part of, and there are 2 or 3 that I look at that and I say, that is what a team is all about. People are for each other, they're caring, they're respectful, and they're working towards building something great. And I wanted to capture that in a bottle because I was told, hey, you only get 2 or 3 of these in your lifetime, in your career. And in reality, I wanted to say, well, if I only get 2 or 3 of those, that's going to be a pretty depressing career. If I've already hit 2 of them, it means there's 1 left. So how do I learn and study and understand how to build those types of teams? So that way I always have that environment, that excitement, that engaging atmosphere, no matter where I end up going. So I've really sat and thought about that and taken it upon myself to say, hey, I want to know what those factors are, what the components are, what the ingredients are in order to build these teams that I love being a part of. That's really what's driven my passion, is not wanting to sit in a team that I'm not on board with being a part of.
Right. What would you say are some of the critical components or the critical mindsets that you bring to the conversation of team building?
Yeah, I think the one right out of the gate is trust. Patrick Lencioni has a book about the 5 dysfunctions, and he talks about trust being one of the key elements of a team. And I look at every team that I hold as a special team in my mind, the thing that we all had was high trust in one another.
Mm-hmm.
And that is high trust in how we work. It's also high trust in how we interact with each other. And so for me, the number one element of a good team, and that's trust between team members, that's trust between leaders and individual contributors, that's trust between leaders within the organization. And that's really where I put a lot of effort and focus when I'm building a team is, hey, we got to strengthen the trust. And how do we do that? That's through difficult conversations where we're being candid with each other, making sure that we're pouring in and helping those conversations be fruitful versus this downward cycle. And so trust to me is number one. After that, and we've talked about this before, but psychological safety, being willing to take risks and being okay with taking risks, both of those are table stakes when it comes to team building. Outside of that, it really boils down to the type of culture that you want to develop and you want to create and you want to curate. Not fully create, because there's going to be elements of the culture already there, but how do you curate the right aspects of the culture that drive that team dynamic, that drive that atmosphere. When I look at those three things, and when I look at the special teams I've been a part of, there's been someone that's been helping manage the trust environment, manage the psychological safety, and then also curating that culture to keep the good things in and the bad things out.
Yeah. A couple things come to mind. First is trust. There's an aspect of trust that I think overlaps with the term faith.
Yeah.
Trust is not just believing the best of someone when the outcome is completely knowable and known. There is an aspect of believing in the unseen that comes to trust. And in business, there are times where you only take on tasks that the outcome is completely knowable. Mm-hmm. And there are organizations, Precision Planting being one of them, that trusts people to take on tasks that the outcome is unknowable, mm-hmm. and gives them leeway, gives them the ability to go and pursue an outcome that really there's not a 100% confidence interval that it can be attained. Obviously, they don't do that autonomously. A component of trust is that not everything has to be guaranteed, but there's a trust that you're going to do it in the right way. You're going to give feedback if it's not working. That's one aspect. The other part you mentioned is culture. And you said there are some aspects of the culture that are predetermined. There's some aspects of the culture that come from the outside. The reason I love the way you describe that is I've always considered culture to be a little bit like a stew.
Yeah.
Right? You think of this enormous cauldron that has a stew inside. You show up, there's already ingredients in that stew. There's already aspects of history that are inside of that stew. Your job, your role as a steward or as a curator of the stew while you have it under your care is to add the ingredients to it. You can't pull ingredients out of a stew. Once they're in, once they're mixed in, it's in there. You have to look to add things to it to make it more appropriate, to make it more palatable, to make it more motivating, to make it more inspiring. And like a stew, there's ladles being taken out as well. People are coming in, people are going out. It's a constant play with this recipe of knowing the ingredients that are in there and how can we complement those ingredients. You brought up another topic that I would ordinarily save this question for the end of the conversation, but I think it's pertinent. Do you think that you have to be the leader of a group to do team building?
No.
Or can an individual contributor be a part and have a mindset of team building?
No, I don't think you need to be the leader. That was something I put on myself before I even stepped into a official leadership title.
Got it.
When I was a part of those special teams, we had a leader that drove it. When that leader unfortunately passed away, I talked about him on our last one, Kevin.
Yeah.
It was now a situation where we were without a leader.
Yeah.
And as an individual contributor, I looked at it and I said, I don't want to give this up yet. I'm going to step into that role of how do we make sure that we as a team are communicating well and collaborating well and still have that trust, even though we don't have the figurehead continually advising us to do that. And so as an individual contributor, we've talked about this before, one of the best things to prepare you for being a leader is to be an individual contributor who is leading in your current role.
Right.
Team building is an element of that. It's not about just the tactical execution of things that you need to do for your career or for the job at hand. It's also, hey, I need to think at a higher level when it comes to my team and how do I make sure my team is healthy? If you can do that as an individual contributor, as a leader, I look for those individuals that are having those conversations, working with each other and speaking into each other in order to build that team up.
Yes.
Those are the ones that are in the pipeline for the next opportunity because they're already demonstrating I can do this without having the title behind my name.
Yeah, that's well said. As we think about team building, bringing new members onto the team is a big part of what the culture ultimately is inside of that team. So in interview process, talk to me about how you overarchingly thought about the interview process, and then are there any things you did specifically in the interview process with the mindset of building a team?
The first thing that I always think about whenever it's building up a team is there's always this anxiety of I have to fill the head count. I have to fill the head count. I've got it. I've got it available. It's on my budget. If I don't fill it, they're going to take it away from me. When it comes to team building, if you can't find the right individual, don't hurry up and fill that role, because that can lead down a path of bringing in elements into the culture, bringing in things into the team dynamic that are not healthy because you made a gut decision. One of the things that I don't know where this came from, but it's hire the heart and not the pulse. That's something that has been always on my mind when we go through interview process. It's not about finding somebody to sit in that seat. And there's metrics all the time when you're in the HR world of that red line of, hey, this role is open for 95 days. It should have been closed 60 days ago.
Right.
We as organizations kind of pressure that, whether it's budgets, whether it's the HR line, it's you need to fill this role. You need to fill this role. A leader who is focused in on team building and is focused in on curating this organization to do some amazing things, you need to just kind of ignore that.
Yes.
Overarching when it comes to hiring, that's the first thing that I look at is I'm going to wait for the right person to walk through the door before we make a true decision. And that sometimes means that a headcount is going to hold for 100 days.
Right.
That brings some tension within the team because, hey, there's more work for everybody. But what I've found over time is that once they understand the thought process, once they understand that that is what we're looking for in the hiring, they're okay with it.
Right.
That's where being open and honest about the hiring approach to not just the leaders within the organization, but also the individual contributors is healthy.
Yeah. You can absolutely move backward by adding a person.
100%.
You can move the entire organization backward. You can move the culture backward. The bad apple analogy is absolutely true. And I love that you brought up that there's a temptation to metrify everything. Every department has to create a set of metrics in a metrics-driven organization that invariably, I don't think intentionally, but invariably become centrist to that department.
Mm-hmm.
So safety has department metrics around safety, and HR has department metrics around HR. It is good to measure. It's bad when the metric gets in the way of the mission.
That's right.
You used an example, which is an HR organization feels like their role is to fill headcount. A very easy thing to measure is how fast can we fill headcount? And so we put goals on it. We should do that faster than 90 days. We should do that faster than 30 days. 75% of them should be this, this, and this. You called it the red line because in our system, the thing actually became red. And you create busy work when you say, okay, we need to talk to the manager about why we're not getting these headcount filled. Is it because the talent isn't there? Do we need to rescope? It's good to have some of those conversations. It's wrong when the conversation implies guilt to someone. Well, it's red. It's over 100 days. Therefore, someone must not be doing their job properly. That's the part where metrics gets in the way of the mission. You and I both have experienced where absolutely there's extra work that has to happen per capita because we're missing one person or two people. But man, it was the right thing for the organization to wait 200 days to find that individual that came in and extended the organization, not just the one headcount, but actually extended it because they were a flag bearer of the culture. They were a creator of ideas. The other thing you touched on is hire the heart, not the pulse. We focused a lot in the interview process on who was the person and who did that person want to become.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that we delineated it was everybody has thought and is pressured from the time you're 10 years old, what do you want to be when you grow up? If you're in a large hierarchical organization, my experience was in the first 3 months of your career, you were supposed to have a plan for what you wanted to do for the next 5, 10, 15 years. And they would say, hey, we don't want locked in. We just want you thinking about it. But it breeds this ground that everyone has to have the answer to what do you want to be. We tried to really ask questions around who is it that you want to be. In a fast-growing organization, the org chart is going to have to change multiple times because we don't know where the growth is going to happen in the time it's going to happen. a person that comes in and says, man, I got a what that I want to be. I want to be a vice president by 35. I want to do this. I want to have 100 people reporting to me. We just couldn't deliver on that because nothing was static. We wanted the heart. We wanted the person who come in and say, I want to serve a customer. I want to be part of a team. I want to build others up. I want to help. It was the humble, hungry, and smart, to get our second Patrick Lencioni reference in this episode.
Within 15 minutes.
Within
great.
15 minutes. Anything else that, as you think about that interview process, that we focused on?
When you get into the interview process, actually the sitting down across the table from the other individual, I think you hit the nail on the head with, we want to determine who that individual is and who they want to be. When we start talking about how do we uncover some of the aspects of them as a character, it really gets into your questioning. I would love to sit here and say, hey, here is the 5 questions to understand if this person is of the culture. The reality is that doesn't exist because it's repetition. It's getting into different interviews and trying different questions and understanding, hey, this question worked in this dynamic. This question didn't work in this dynamic. One of the questions that I often ask is, if you were the author of the culture, what would that look like? So that way I can understand from their heart what type of a culture they want. But that question doesn't always hold water, and it doesn't always lead you down the path. It's always this recipe of 15 to 20 questions that you're asking throughout the interview process to truly understand, hey, is this going to be an individual who comes in and builds, or is it going to be an individual who comes in and detracts? And that's what I'm really trying to assess. The other thing that I think is really important, you don't always have to be thinking about the current role they're getting hired into. Back to the, who do you want to be? There's an individual that we brought into the organization into a specialist role. As we were going through the interview process, my mind started thinking about, well, I know this product is coming out in 2 years. This individual may not be the perfect fit for this current role.
Yes.
But I know that product they're going to excel at.
Right.
And they're going to be a really powerful fit there. So I'm going to work down the path of bringing them into the organization today. So strategically, in 2 years, I have my farm system, to put it in Major League Baseball terms, I have my farm system ready for when that product comes in. There is an element, as you're doing the team building in the hiring process, that if you're only thinking about today, you could be doing your team a disservice for the future. Yeah.
The other thing that we really tried to focus on was to put the individual in situations, even in the interview, that we hoped that individual would thrive in as an employee. Some of those examples were within the sales organization. We used a challenger sale methodology, which was to come in to teach, to tailor, to take control, to educate the grower. You really don't talk about the actual product until the 7th or 8th inning of the conversation. We would give the potential candidate a product that's in the marketplace, not even an ag product, and we would say, hey, come in and sell the product. And it wasn't the old adage of sell me this pen. It was to have them prepare to see their comfort level. Again, not that they have to come in and be perfect at it, but you want to watch how they prepare for the conversation, how they adapt in the conversation. Other examples were within product support. We would hand them Fisher-Price toys that were broken and say, how would you tackle this? We weren't actually expecting them to get the toy running, but we wanted to see, do they reach for the screwdriver first, or do they go to the cell phone and Google first? How are they going to tackle?
Do they even reach for it at all?
Correct.
That was always a, can I touch it? Yes, please touch it.
That's right.
Please open it up. Do whatever you need to do.
Exactly.
And then the individual who would sit there and theoretically talk about how they would fix. Everything you need to do to diagnose it is right there. And I'm going to sit here and theoretically talk about how I fix it. That individual can be super talented at diagnosing, can be super talented at serving the customer. But for our organization, for our culture, not being practical and hands-on, it's going to put the team backwards from where we are. And so that was an easy way of uncovering, you're not what we would like in this role in this organization. The other thing we've done is we've had them present topic that they were passionate about to educate us on. when you open it up that wide, and this was an experiment, we're like, hey, we're going to try this. We're going to see, because we used to give them, here's the presentation, present the presentation for us. And you would have the individuals who would come in and they would just throw it up on the wall and read off the slides. You'd have the individuals who would actually go in and change up those slides, which I always loved.
Yes.
Hey, you actually took the time to do that.
Take ownership.
That's right. But then when we opened it up to be anything, we had some wild interviews out of that. We had one individual, he came in and he sat down. He puts the presentation up on the wall. We're going to talk about the basics of accounting today. And you just see all the leaders around the table, like, just start rolling their eyes back in their head because they're like, oh, this is going to be a boring one. And he goes to the next slide. He's like, just kidding. We're going to talk about brewing beer. And I'm like, one, bold move to do that in an interview.
That's right.
Bold move. I like the humor. Let's see where this goes. He ended up doing a wonderful job. That was one of my favorite moments, as he pulled the switcheroo on that one. I'm like, hey, kudos. I like the humor coming in.
For our organization, there was really no role that did not have customer interaction. Almost every role in the organization, from support to engineering to marketing to sales, you could argue that some of the assembly roles didn't have direct customer interaction, but almost every role had customer interaction. And so part of this presentation was to watch how someone presents themselves in a room where they need to connect with people that don't know them. And I don't know that I was in the interview for the...
you weren't in that.
I don't remember that one. That seems like one I would remember. I remember a few presentations that were rather boring.
Yes.
But that one I don't remember. The other part, as we thought about the interview process, is to understand that experience comes with a context. You can have two people with nearly a similar resume of experience, but the company that they collected that experience in adds a context that could make one or the other of those candidates a far better fit.
Yeah.
You think about large organizations. Here in Central Illinois, there are many multinational organizations that have been successful for 100 years, 150 years, 175 years, and they have really created a market-leading business that, candidly, most of the employees are given a set of rules, a set of processes that were established 20, 30, 50 years ago, and their role is in many ways to enforce and endorse those processes within the broader machine. There's opportunity for slight optimization. There's opportunity for increased collaboration and things of that nature. But in general, their role was pretty tightly defined and pretty tightly boxed in. Another person could have the same job title, team lead, but in an organization that is in the wild west of its growth curve, where they're having to change strategy on a regular basis. The person may have been head of support for 1 year and then head of sales for the next year and then head of both of them in the third year, just because the business was growing so dynamically. It's not to say that one of them is bad and one of them is good, but depending on which department we were hiring for, the department size when we were hiring, and what we were looking to balance the department, we wanted to understand the context of those experiences. And so we would try to dig into not just what was done, but why was it done? Because sometimes the why, the answer is, well, I don't know. I was just told by my department head.
Yeah.
That's insightful. Again, not wrong, not right, but that's insightful. Versus if the why is, well, we had to do something, and so I had an opportunity and I saw this and I saw that, so we did this, and it didn't work perfectly, but we tried and we iterated. That's a different context to a similar experience. It was just to say that some people are very comfortable when process is provided.
Yeah.
And other people, process kind of chokes them out.
Yeah.
Gets them a little stressed. As we grew the business, ultimately we needed both types.
Correct.
We had to have parts of the business that were stable, that were repetitive, that were able to get 2% better every year. And then we had other parts of the business where it was just the complete Wild West. We didn't know what we were going to be doing in 12 months, but we knew we needed to be successful, and we knew the answer was somewhere between the 5th and 50th iteration. Get there as fast as possible. The reason we tried to understand where these interviewees would be comfortable and where the organization needed this role to be was because we were looking to match those two.
That's right.
The wrong person in either direction, in the wrong role in the organization, stresses the organization and it stresses the individual as well.
Yeah, that was one thing that we really leaned into. How comfortable are you with gray area?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what really starts to expose what category we put them in. Because there are times in the story arc of an organization where you need somebody who is that process, but you need to understand if that individual, where they really fall. And getting into the gray area discussions exposes that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
In terms of, hey, when you were working on this, what else would you have done?
Mm-hmm.
What are the other options you would have tried? You said that was highly successful. What could have made it more successful? Trying to understand if they have a thought process of building, if the answer is, well, no, it was very successful. And that's not the wrong answer. It just doesn't lead to, hey, this is a builder.
Right.
And this is somebody who wants to live in process. Understanding those, to your point, is massive when it comes to fitting the right person in the right area of the organization.
There was a season where I led the operations organization. A discipline like operations, as you think about the broader society, it very much favors process.
Yeah.
It favors control. It favors repetitiveness. It favors assured outcomes. As we were building that organization, I think in a period of a year, we hired 6 managers. I was very intentional that we needed kind of your classic operations manager mindsets, which is to say, we're going to build 100,000 of these widgets this year, and we need to do it in control, with metrics, with visibility, with change management. And next year, we're going to build 120,000 of them, and we need to do that at a lower cost structure than we did this year. That is a wise and good production manager. But our business was also launching 2 products a year, and part of our value proposition to the industry was that we were rapid to launch products.
Yeah.
We were very careful in how we launched, but it was not launch perfect as much as it was launch in a way that it would serve the purpose, but there was going to be some bumps. The early adopters, they're willing to take the bumps, they're willing to take the lumps, as long as you're with them through the process. And so we launched quick. It was very interesting because we had one operations manager who came from a very rigorous and thorough and process-controlled background. And there was a certain set of product lines that he was wonderful at leading and keeping in control and controlling costs. And then we had another production manager that was amazing at making it happen. He knew, we knew, the parts were coming in late. The parts weren't going to fit perfectly. The supplier was going to have to be called. The engineering manager and the engineer who designed it was going to be there 10 days in a row trying to get it to fit. We were going to be building tooling in situ. And at the end of the first year, we were going to deconstruct the assembly line and rebuild it the right way for the second year. Those are both operations managers, but they are very, very different operations managers in how they would answer every single interview question that you would ask them. We wanted to build an organization that had both of those operations managers, but we had to be intentional. Which one are we hiring for? What lines are they going to run? What is the ecosystem around those lines? And then go back to the stew. How do we make sure that the carrots and the onions don't kill each other inside of the stew? Because they principally believe that the other one's doing it wrong.
Correct.
Right? Because the organizations that they've worked with in the past would never let a dude like you work at a place like this because we are either fast and innovative or we are world-class in our quality. As you think about culture, it's not just find a photocopy of your highest performers. It's about trying to understand where is the organization going, What's the DNA of the people that are going to complement one another and getting the organization to that outcome?
No Rules by Reed Hastings. He has the phrase in there, no jerks allowed.
No brilliant jerks.
No brilliant jerks. In those moments, when you have two individuals who are on different ends of the spectrum and how they work, the way that we are able to pull it off oftentimes is we didn't allow the brilliant jerk in.
Yes.
These individuals, they're going to clash on ideas, but neither of them are attacking the person. They're attacking the process or the issue. For me, that's the other thing that comes in when it's team building is understanding that the people around us have the right heart and right intent.
Yes.
For me, when I think about a team that I want to work for, it's when I sit at a table and I look around that table and everybody has the right heart and intent. When you have that, the way that we come to work, whether we're more process-oriented or whether we're more idea-oriented in trying new things, if you have that right heart and intent, that's the common ground that you can really excel at, because we may not agree on how to do it, but we agree on the why we're doing it.
Yes. Do you assume the best of the people you don't agree with?
That's right.
Do you assume the best of the situations you don't understand? Once that starts to slide down the slope, you fall into a lot of infighting, a lot of waste. Wasted energy, wasted cultural capital, of accusing one another of things, of assuming negative of one another. It's to say, have people that view the world differently, but are they, rather than being a brilliant jerk, do they have the humility to understand that we need all of the positions on the field filled differently with different talented people? Another aspect that I know you excelled in a ton. I'm going to give you the compliment. I want to make sure I want to pump you up here.
You're making me blush.
If you can't find them, build them.
Yeah.
There were multiple times where, for one reason or another, the free market did not provide the right DNA, did not provide the right experience of candidate. And so we looked and said, man, for the long term, we're going to need a lot of people in this category. Let's build them. Let's create them. Talk to me about your mindset as you say, hey, we're just going to build this talent with either who's already in the organization or bring someone in for the purpose of building them into something.
If I look back, the time where I had to challenge my mindset quite a bit was when we were heading into a season within Precision Planting for the product support team who I was leading at that time. The planting season. That is the Super Bowl of the product support team. That's how we would message it. Hey, this is what we do all year is prepare for these 10 weeks.
Yep.
As we were heading into one of the Super Bowls, we had two individuals who went home to farm, which I love.
Yeah.
I always excited about that. We had an individual who left to go to another organization. When that happened, you look out at the team and they feel defeated because they're looking at a Super Bowl. They just lost. It may not have been the starting quarterback, but it was definitely the interior guard. You lose some of these individuals, and it's defeating for the team. And we had to start thinking about, hey, we've got to go out and find talent quickly. The reality is we wanted to find the right talent. We wanted to find the right talent quickly, as I mentioned
to the previous
before.
point. Yeah, don't just fill it with a body.
That's right. We didn't find that. We couldn't find it. The market was low, so we started talking about, well, okay, now we can't find the individuals to bring them in. We need to grow them. And so that's where we started talking through creating what we call the development program.
Mm-hmm.
It was about finding individuals who had the right character traits, but maybe did not have the expertise that would earn them a full-time position within the organization because they just hadn't had a professional experience. They hadn't been in the working environment for a long time, or they've never been a part of a agriculture support organization. We needed to understand whether or not they would be a good fit. This was a way for us to say, okay, let's go ahead and find an opportunity. What we did was we essentially signed them on for 6 months. And we said, hey, we're going to bring you in for a 6-month contract. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for you as an individual in this exercise. You're going to learn a lot. We're going to pour into you. We're going to bring an onboarding program in. We're going to bring a professional development program in. We didn't want to churn and burn these individuals.
Correct.
We wanted to bring them in and understand, are they going to provide value for the organization because they hold those right character traits?
And what were the character traits that you were looking for?
It goes back to that Patrick Lencioni, hungry, humble, and smart. Those three are extremely important. The hungry element, the curiosity, that one for this development role was needed because I needed somebody to walk in and say, I'm willing to learn.
Yes.
I'm willing for somebody to grow me. We would calibrate the interview to figure out, are they a curious individual? Are they excited to learn? Are they the person that's going to ask the second and third question? Because if they only ask the first question and they say, thank you, they're not as curious as I would like them to be. Finding those that have strong curiosity is what led to individuals coming into the organization, consuming all this information. And we actually pulled the learning curve back to where an individual coming into our organization as a full-time contributor, it would take them a good 12 to 18 months before we would deem them as being successful. We were able to bring these individuals up to that level at 6 months because of the onboarding process, because of the intentionality in them. And when we did that, now we had the right character traits and we very much focused on skill set. We built an individual that we would have hired if they would walk through the door after their 6-month stint.
Right.
Whereas we wouldn't have hired them in a full-time job if they walked through the door at the beginning.
Right.
That was one of the areas that we said, hey, we really want to grow individuals into that role. But then the other side is also focusing in on the development of the individuals that are currently on your team.
Absolutely.
A lot of us, we can often lose that intentionality in the daily motion, right? Yeah. We have tasks that we need to perform. We have things that we need to deliver upon that are a part of our organization. And professional development is not a metric that is measured in most organizations, at least in a level that is of value to that individual.
You're saying taking all of the required learning does not fall into the category of professional development?
For somebody who probably has a red line next to the development learning on their own training requirements, it's probably...
That's a hot take right there.
Yep. I need to get better in that regard.
Right on. You mentioned the value of bringing in people that, one, know that they aren't yet where they need to be, but are excited for the opportunity. And you have said, we're going to give you the opportunity. You need to seize the opportunity. And they've said, I want to seize that opportunity. It also buoys the rest of the team.
Yeah.
As they, one, see people coming that are young, not young in the age, but young in their career, young in their skill set, but are energetic to learn. When new employees are excited to be here, it can engender excitement for a tenured employee. You also had the opportunity where the tenured employees are pouring into the young employees, not because this young employee is going to replace me, but because this young employee is going to carry some load as we get into the heat of it. The other part, and I say this only for clarification, this had zero to do with low-cost supplier. This had zero to do with using contractors instead of full-time employees. This had zero to do with cost reduction. This had everything to do with saying, we're going to build into people that they may not be there yet. There was a path that each and every one of them was afforded, that you put the energy in, you put the effort in, you acquire the skill. You're a full-blooded team member as you come out of the exercise. You represented the product support organization in that conversation. From my experience in the engineering organization, we had multiple farmhands that were operating as full-blooded design engineers. We had hired them because they wanted to operate a tractor or they wanted to work in the weld shop. And they demonstrated a curiosity, they demonstrated a creativity, they engaged in conversations with the engineer at the time that would say, why are we doing this? And what if we tried this? And there were multiple engineers, I'll call them engineers, they didn't have a degree from an accredited university in engineering, but they were operating entirely at the level of a design engineer. We had the same thing with software engineers. We, as most people have, struggled to find software engineers. So we went to mid-career professionals and said, hey, if you want to come to our organization and take 6 months of a boot camp of learning to code, we will give you a salary while you're learning to code, and we will give you a software engineer salary when you complete that boot camp. And it was not about cost reduction. It was about finding people with the right DNA, humble, hungry, and smart. It's off the charts able to see hunger in someone when they have consumed a huge volume of information so that they can be a contributing member of the organization. For us, building into people, it was an amazing pipeline of talent that we were able to bring into the culture and bring into the organization.
Yeah, the other thing that I really like about all of these programs, it had a domino effect. It gave the opportunity for us to take somebody who is desiring to be a people leader and pair them with these individuals.
Yes.
To understand what the dynamic is as a people leader. They're not a titled leader. They didn't show up in the org chart. But at the same time, I said, hey, you own the relationship there.
Yeah.
Do one-on-ones. Have the coaching conversations. Make sure that they're aligned in the different areas they need to grow. That led a massive opportunity for us to see who the next leaders in the organization were.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got this weird analogy of stew that we've been using throughout the episode. Probably doesn't work at every level. And we said you can't pull a full ingredient out. But every once in a while, there's a squirrely potato inside the stew. And as the chef, you have to reach in and you have to pull that one squirrely looking potato out. Part of managing the culture is not just interviewing people in. It's not just developing people that are hungry, humble, and smart and excited to learn, and they always take on the challenge and they're up to it. Sometimes managing the culture, sometimes building a team is the removal of an individual. The coaching and mentoring, the hard work of fixing things that are broken organizationally and in the team. Talk to me about your approach of managing what I would say in some ways the harder side of keeping the team in the right place. Yeah.
Initially, what I would say is I always try to step into the curation process with knowing what my guardrails are. What are my table stakes? What are the things that if somebody gets over the edge of those guardrails, I'm going to coach right then and there? That was some of the thought process of how we messaged coach early and often. That was very important to me. If something happens in the moment, coach it right then and there. Let's talk through it. Because that allows us to see right out of the gate, number one, is the individual receiving the coaching? If they are, awesome. You showed the organization that this is an activity that will get you coached. It puts the warning flags up for everybody else to say, hey, this is not allowed. Number two, you got the opportunity to build somebody up and to grow somebody. Always coach early and often. If you start to see that your coaching is not sticking, that's where you get into the harder and harder conversations, because now you are having to highlight why the situation was counterculture. The reality is when you start having these conversations, that individual is going to feel like you're going after them.
Yeah.
Because this is something I do. It's my personality trait.
Sure.
Can't fix it. I can't correct it. I keep missing on it. You hear all these pieces of feedback, and there are some elements where it's like, yeah, I understand it's a personality trait. But when we look at our culture, when we look at the things that make this team great, that is actually pulling us backwards. That is negative. It's vitriol. And so how do we correct that over time? Then you get to the part where you've had those multiple coachings, you've highlighted it, you've given the insight, you've talked about how it's counterculture, and things still don't improve. That's one of the hardest things, because if I don't take care of this, it's going to infect. It's going to go septic.
Yep.
And so then you have to make the move. You don't have to do it in the public square in front of everybody, but you have to do it to where the reason for this move is because of these culture traits.
Yes.
That way the organization knows this is not allowed.
Yes.
My approach to managing somebody out is having open, transparent conversations, multiple coaching sessions. And then if you don't see the improvement, if you don't see the reception of those coaching, that's where you have to say, this is not the right opportunity for you
Yeah.
because I've got to protect the other group from this negative impact.
Yeah, I've always thought you praise in public, you coach in private.
That's right.
The organization should know, exactly as you said, what behaviors are out of bounds.
That's right.
I've heard it said multiple times, I think there's truth in it, that culture is as much defined by what is the worst behavior tolerated by leadership. What is the lowest common denominator of behavior in treating other people, in selfishness, in pride, in anger? What is the lowest common denominator that is tolerated? That's your culture.
Yeah.
That's a key component
that.
of your culture. The other thing that you touched on, one person does infect and influence the rest of the organization. There's an adage that I've used, and it is to say, gazelles need to know that lions are real.
Yeah.
That's not to be cruel. It's not to be mean, but as part of an organization that is growing, an organization that is pursuing improvement, pursuing to be yet better, there has to be an urgency to it. There has to be a desire to move. Everybody in the organization knows who the slowest gazelle is.
Mm-hmm.
They know who the person is that takes the long breaks, that a little bit slow to answer, doesn't answer. Everybody knows who that is. And they, for right or for wrong, they calibrate off of that slow gazelle. The next slowest in the room say, well, he's fine, so I'm fine. What also happens is the highest performers, they know that the back of the pack exists, and they are tempted, and they have to face their own questions of, well, then why am I doing all this?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I doing all this? There was this very unique experience that I had as a leader very early. I led an organization. There was one individual that for a long period of time had demonstrated publicly some real slow gazelle behaviors, and nothing had been done about it for a long time. It was affecting the broader team, so much so that in the absence of that individual in a conversation, he would come up and they'd say, well, how come this is tolerated? And how come this is tolerated? And so we went through the coaching steps. My desire has always been to change behavior rather than to change personnel. It has always been to change behavior. We just didn't get there. And so the hard day comes. You don't sleep as a leader. You're sick to your stomach all day as a leader. You do it as graciously as possible. You do it in private, all of those things. And I had this experience, and I kid you not, it was so impactful. As I'm walking back from the parking lot after shaking the hand of the individual, a person bumps into me in the hall that's in the organization. And in general, the person was in the back of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
The person says to me, man, that's a hard day. That's a hard day when somebody gets let go. But it is such a good reminder that we all have to work hard. It's such a good reminder that you can't just take a paycheck and do nothing.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, as a leader, that's exactly what I would love for you to feel.
Yeah.
Is that we got to move. I go another 75 yards as I'm walking back to the office, and I bump into probably the most talented, hardest working individual in the organization. He also was on the team with the individual that was let go. And he says to me, Justin, thank you for running an organization where you have to work hard to be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for not allowing hangers on. Thank you for not allowing those to drag us down. And I thought to myself, wow, that's exactly what I want that individual to be thinking about our organization. And it was just to say, an act that was done, I tried to do it as professionally and as politely and as carefully as possible. I got these 2 data points within 2 minutes that those that were tempted to run slowly, they got the message.
Yeah.
And those that run at the front of the pack, they got the message. It was 2 different messages, but it was exactly the message that they needed to hear to drive the culture in the right direction. And it was from that day, that is to say, be gracious, be careful, hope for change, Hope for behavior to change. But if you have to change personnel, if you've been careful, if you've been gracious, you send the right message to everyone else in the organization by curating the culture and building the team in that way.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better than that. That's great.
Caleb, one last question.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people listening right now that work inside of large organizations that maybe feel boxed in on all sides. They don't set the priority for the company. They have a corporate interview packet that they have to use. How would you coach? How would you mentor a person that's a team leader that wants to impact the culture of their local team? What are the things that you would say to them? Hey, even though you may feel boxed in this way, this way, and this way, here's a way that tomorrow, next month, next year, you can work on team building. You can work on mentoring others inside of your organization.
Yeah, I would say for those individuals, my guidance would be, number one, know what your guardrails are. Know what you want and actually put them on paper. Now, this isn't something for you to put on paper to show everybody. You don't go out and hand this out. This is who we're going to be going forward. But this allows you to start calibrating the conversations you have in order to forward that culture. Then it's also when you see something that butts up against it or crosses that line, now you know, hey, these are the three things I need to have a conversation with that individual. And so I say knowing what your guardrails are and then also demonstrating those guardrails.
Yeah.
It is as silly as that sounds. You say you want this type of culture. The qualities that you portray to your team, they will follow. Andy Stanley, a phenomenal communicator, talked about your climate affects the climate of others. If you walk in and you have sunshine and rainbows above your head, and you walk into a room with a whole bunch of people with storm clouds above their heads, if you have the willingness to showcase and not be infected by somebody else, you're going to create the sunshine above their heads. If you walk into the room with a thundercloud above your head and you have the influence and the authority in the room and they all have sunshine, what happens? All of them go to thunderclouds over their heads. The way you bring yourself to work, that's the first thing that you can do personally to help change that culture. You got to ask the question, do I fall into the negative culture habits? If people are gossiping, do I join in?
Right.
If there is an opportunity for me to pull back on the throttle when nobody's watching, do I join in? Are there ways that I actually do a disservice to other people in other departments because I'm talking in generalities about how terrible engineering is or how terrible sales is or how terrible support is? Those are all things that you as a leader need to be very calibrated on, because if you want a certain culture, a positive culture and a trusting culture, you have to exemplify that not just with the team that reports to you, but the team that is side by side with you and the team that is above you.
Yeah. Well said. Even in large, hierarchical, multinational organizations, there are teams and there are departments that people desperately want to work for.
Yeah.
And it is because of the countenance of the leader. It's because of the respect that the leader gives to others, not just demands for themselves, but gives to others. It's because of pouring into people. It's because of caring for people. Even in a large organization that may feel like one department is hemmed in on every side, there is a large percentage of the transactions that are inside of the department, relational transactions inside of the department. A brand new engineer coming into a department in a multinational company, 90% of his interactions are going to be inside of his group, either with a senior engineer in the group or the team leader or the manager. For that individual contributor, almost the entirety of the culture is dictated by their team lead. There are psychological studies, psychological surveys that have said that 70+% of an employee's engagement is dictated by the relationship with their frontline supervisor. It doesn't matter if you're in a startup or you're in a multinational business. If you are in a supervisory role, you are the curator of the culture of your group. Now, you may have a ton of stuff going on around you. You may have a ton of stuff going on above you. But for your team, you are the curator. And are you an umbrella that deflects the storm clouds? Or are you say, hey guys, we're stuck. This is what we have to do. This is the world around us. Tough noogies. Whether you want to be or not, anybody reporting to you or anybody in your purview is looking to you to set that culture, whether you're in a startup or whether you're in a big, bureaucratic, 175-year-old company. Caleb, it has been so fun to talk about team building. I have learned so much from you across the years of how to approach people development and team development. Thanks so much for stopping by and sharing your experiences with the Grody and Unprofessional audience.
I appreciate it all the time. And this is one of the things I look forward to, and getting to connect with you and talking about these types of things, especially if this helps one leader find an opportunity within themselves to get better. Man, that's 100% worth it for me.
Awesome. Thanks so much. For those that wish to share praise, feedback, accolades, or large sums of money, you can reach me at justin@grody.io. For those that self-identify as a brilliant jerk and desire to set me straight on the subject of team building, you can... Who are we kidding? Brilliant jerks turned this episode off a long time ago. So what the heck? You guys too can send me an email at justin@grody.io. Thanks for your time. Let's do this again soon.